who is playing Grixis Control. Both these players 5-0, though Cox currently up a game. Take a look at the boards here for both players. I've got some Thopters out there, which means Pia and Kieran made an appearance, and apparently making an appearance again. Now, this card has to be great in this matchup.
It blocks Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Pendelhaven is kind of an issue, but at the very least, you get a lot of extra time. And if you get to untap, then you just get to start mowing stuff down. So, yeah, this is kind of what the deck does, is like you play a Pia and Kieran, and you get to bring it back, play it again.
On Cox's side, there's a Pendelhaven out there, there's a Dryad Arbor, a couple copies of Noble Hierarch. Gonna get a block. And you see actually Jessup's life total.
5 and 2 Infect.
Yeah, it's been getting worked down the regular way from the Infect strategy.
Yeah, that Dryad Arbor is 4 power.
That's very true. But that Dryad Arbor might not be along very long, given that Pia and Kieran are active now. I believe Jace may have been the draw step, but Jessup does have 6 mana on the battlefield for 2 activations of Pia and Kieran Nalar, so perhaps he just wants to leave that mana available. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's kind of a tough choice because do you want to start mowing stuff down with Pia and Kieran, or do you want to play Jace and start working that a little bit?
Is Jessup thinking attack step?
Well, I think you get to attack with something. Basically, you only need 1 or 2 blockers. You know, you've only taken 2 infects so far, so the Inkmoth is likely not lethal. And it's not that great to attack with multiple creatures when you have 2 Noble Hierarchs. You're almost better off just attacking with the one thing.
Oh, he will attack with 2. Now here's Jace.
And I like this. I think you do only really need the 1 activation this turn.
And pass the turn back. Back to Cox will go. Interesting stuff here. Can't forget that turn for the land for the turn, last turn, was a copy of Inkmoth Nexus. Marlin is going to start by activating Pendelhaven on Dryad Arbor.
I kind of want to know how this game played out, where like Danny only took 2 infect damage, but 15 real damage.
I don't know how we got here either.
And probably a lot of like fetch shock.
Sure. In this matchup, most players do consider it just to be a free roll.
Yeah, it is most of the time. But there are these games like this where Noble Hierarch, you know, kills you pretty quickly.
It looks like Pia and Kieran are going to go after the Dryad Arbor. Remember that Pendelhaven activation is on the stack. If it resolves, Dryad Arbor becomes a 2/3.
Yeah, I think I like just having a chump blocker, like chump with a Thopter and then throw it at maybe a Noble Hierarch.
This might be a chump block with the parents.
Well, Danny does have access to a Kolaghan's Command if his Jace lives.
Okay, all right.
So, you know, maybe just trying to make more Thopters. Kind of surprised to not see a throw there, but Danny has a plan.
Jace the draw. Very quick activation.
Yeah, don't need that one.
Serum Visions. It's time to flip Jason to the Telepath Unbound. Get to work with the beautiful Planeswalker. It'll start on 5. We'll see if the elevator goes up or down.
Probably start with Serum Visions here, get more information to work with before you actually make a decision. Like, the decision with Jace is a pretty big one for this turn.
Ooh, Dark Blast.
It's a pretty good one.
I love myself a Dark Blast. I can't say no to that.
When your opponent has 4 different X1 creatures.
Yeah, they could have a 10/10. I just like Dark Blast.
Yeah, fair enough.
Gonna leave it on top. The Water Reader is gonna go to the bottom. Jace is gonna allow the recasting of something, and it's Kolaghan's Command.
Shock one of my Thopters, shatter the other one.
Oh no, Magic Online's broken.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Okay, make you discard, get back Pia and Kieran. That's also acceptable, I suppose.
I think, so last turn we saw an attack with 2 of them. Looks like this turn we're only gonna see an attack with 1.
Yeah, now I think Danny can afford to play more conservatively. Because I think the only way he really loses this game is by just, making an overzealous attack and losing to a couple pump spells. And Marlin did discard a Groundswell, so it's like his other card is action.
Yeah, if he's discarding that card, there's no telling what the other card is. You just know that it's probably good.
Yeah.
All right. Pendelhaven, target Dryad over. I'm coming in.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, if he had 2 blockers, Danny had 2 blockers, if Marlin attacked with all 3 of his creatures and had either a Become Immense or 2 big pump spells, like Danny could actually lose.
Mm-hmm. Dark Blast the draw. All right, here are the parents again.
For the 3rd time.
Yep. This is a lot to overcome. I mean, the first one is pretty tough. The second one's really tough. There's a Polluted Delta. Get a little more aggressive here. Honestly, the other thing you got to keep in mind, too, is that Cox has fallen down to 7.
Yeah. I mean, we saw in Danny's matchup earlier against Tickle where he does try and close the game as quickly as possible.
Well, I think Grixis' closing speed is a little underrated. It can close the game pretty quick with the Bolts and Snapcasters and Tasigur.
Yeah, and Tar Pit, too, is a pretty big one.
And there is a Tar Pit, I believe, in the row.
Yep.
Kind of hiding out there, looking like a watery grave.
2, actually.
Okay, fair enough. You got your Tar Pit radar on, don't you?
Oh, I know what Tar Pit looks like.
I know you do. And there's a spell skite.
It's a good one. A little awkward at 7 life.
I think Jessup is thinking about maybe throwing something. What do we have here?
Just cash in the Dark Blast.
Okay.
Might want to target Noble Hierarch because of the Pendelhaven.
Yep, that's where he's going to go. You can actually kind of have some creative turns with Dark Blast in this deck, too. Flashback Serum Visions, Dredge.
Sure.
I don't know if that's good, but...
Oh, no, I've Thought Scoured into Dark Blast before and dredged it for the draw step.
Ooh.
Or off the Thought Scour.
Baby. I'm totally in.
And then it's like you just Dark Ritualed out a Tasigur.
Yeah, okay, all right. I think we're going to see a block here with a Thopter. A lot of synergies in the Grixis control deck. You don't see a lot of synergy-laden decks in Modern, it feels like.
It's just good deck building.
Yeah, it's definitely what it is.
It's Michael Majors all the way.
He's a pretty smart guy. So here's a block with a Thopter. No ways really to give trample, stuff like that. You're not really going to find that in Effect decks. Rancor, sure, but you see that coming.
Yeah, so Pro Tour Cons, or Pro Tour Fate Reforged era, when the deck kind of blew up, they were playing a few Distortion Strikes.
Yep.
And that was to get around Lingering Souls. P and Kieran, very much the same thing. I think people like Tom Ross and Todd Anderson have mostly moved away from things like Distortion Strike. They're just like, whatever, we'll find a different way around, And Marlin actually does have 2 copies in his deck, so be interesting to see how game 1 played out, whether or not he saw P and Kieran, whether he knows it's there. But Distortion Strike is definitely a scary card.
We got a Tar Pit activation. And do we have an attempt at a W here? Keep in mind, Spellskite can redirect right now. So that's an attack for 5.
Well, you can attack with all the Thopters and force the block from Inkmoth. It looks like the Pendelhaven is still up, though.
Looks like all the damage is going to come through.
So Daniel just puts Marlin to 2. Have 3 blockers plus Tasigur.
And he will play it. Time to delve away a healthy chunk of the graveyard.
Oh, I see a Thoughtseize in the graveyard, too, so that might have been part of the reason why he was at 5 life.
And now, Jace will tick up, slow down the Dryad Arbor, pass the turn back. See the score. 2-5. Jessup in the lead right now, and I think we might be getting ready for a 3rd game here.
Yeah, Glistener Elf off the top is probably not going to be any help.
A little late to this party. Noble Hierarch into the red zone. Yeah, pretty quick block. Danny's not letting anything through at any point. The one thing he's been consistent on since we joined this game, he's been blocking early and often.
Yes.
Not going to let a single thing through and let some pump spell nonsense take him out. That's why we're all tied up now as Danny Jessup and Marlin Cox. Crix is controlled. In fact, getting ready for game number 3. So we will take a look at these sideboards here. We saw Jessup's a little bit earlier, but we'll start with Cox, who's got 3 Nature's Claims, 2 Dispel, 2 Twisted Image, and a bunch of one-ofs here. Dismember, Relic of Progenitus, Pithing Needle, Leyline of Sanctity, Spellskite, Wild Defiance, Hercule's Recall, Grafdigger's Cage.
Wild Defiance is very good against lightning bolts and things like Dark Blast. So I would imagine that would come in. He does not have any copies main deck. The third Spellskite is likely going to be there. Twisted Image is very good against Jace Vryn's Prodigy.
Yep.
And some Dispels to win those counter wars. And that looks to be about it. The Relic could come in too. I mean, it's nice for stopping Snapcaster Mage.
The Twist, that card keeps getting better and better.
It does. I mean, there's Noble Hierarch and Spellskite already.
And now Jace, which is only going to be going up in play. It's definitely a good sideboard card.
Yeah, there's also the random stuff out of Affinity, like the Signal Past Ornithopter.
Yeah, that's very true as well.
I played one main deck Twisted Image in my Oklahoma City deck.
Okay.
I don't think I did anything with it, though.
That's too bad.
I twisted a Deceiver Exarch and Lightning Bolted it. That's about it.
3 Molten Rain, 2 Dispel, 2 Instant Static Caster, Dreadbore, Risefall, Vandal Blast, Dark Blast, Thoughtseize, Spellskite, Nile Spellbomb, Rending Volley here for Danny Jessup.
So definitely like these Static Casters. I basically like any removal spell in this matchup, except Dreadbore is Sorcery Speed, so it seems like not great here. I do love the Dark Blast and the Spellskite and the Thoughtseize. And Dispel, I suppose. Molten Rain's a little too slow.
It feels a little slow.
Yeah.
3, and on the draw. Not in love.
That's true.
Okay. These players shuffling up here for game number 3. We'll be underway here in just a moment. But we're talking Hoppin' Rabbit Master now. This is our Season 4 playmat here on the Open Series. You come to a main event or any Open Series weekend, that's how you go about getting this thing. You sign up for the tournament, you get a voucher, cash it in, get one of these. Free, limited edition playmat available to all Open Series competitors until December 5th, which is our return to Denver for the Open Series. So hopefully we'll see you guys at each and all of those dates. And I know we're going to see Danny Jessup at least a couple more. We'll be in New Jersey a couple weeks from now, so I imagine he'll be casting some spells there. And, it is notable that he made the trip out to this tournament this weekend because he's already qualified for the Players' Championship. But his brother did some traveling this weekend. And also, I think Danny's pretty confident in Modern right now.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. I mean, I know like 6 months ago or so when I first started hanging out with him, he was kind of like waffling on decks, like, what should I play? What should I play? But now he's just like, he's putting up some good runs with this deck, and I think he likes it a lot. It's more of his play style.
Both players are going to take a mulligan here. It looks like they're going to be both taking a look at 6 cards in just a second. It's interesting where, I think of 6 months ago, and he had been playing in some Premier IQs with Grixis. And he's just like, I screwed up here and did this wrong and all this stuff. And he's like, this deck is just really hard to play. There's so many different decisions and lines with Snapcaster and Kolaghan's Command. But one thing about him, and I realized this last year and a little bit this year, because he was just always playing Abzan in Standard. Everyone was just switching decks. He's like, I'm just playing Abzan Control, leave me alone. Don't do a deck tech with me.
It is the deck I know.
Yeah, and he just would always play the same deck, maybe change 2 or 3 cards every weekend, and that's it. And that's what I think he's starting to do with this deck. And this format isn't as fluid as Standard was. So if he's just going to play this deck, not a lot changes in Modern. Maybe some new cards come out that are busted or whatever, but not a lot really changes. So taking the time to learn this deck over the course of a couple of months, and this is where you're at moving forward, that's a pretty nice luxury.
Yeah, I was always envious of the people that only played Birthing Pod in tournaments because it was like, oh man, I have Modern coming up. I have to figure out what deck to play. And I just knew that there were people out there that were just like, oh, I have my deck already. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, maybe I need like a new bullet for a matchup, but that's really
maybe
it.
I need to re-sleeve my deck.
Yeah.
Yep, got to get ready.
Pretty much. And they always won. So
yeah,
they were doing it right the whole time. Jessup is going to sacrifice a Bloodstained Mire, get himself a Steam Vent as we're underway here in game number 3. You see the clock, about 11 minutes, 30 seconds here for game number 3. Hopefully for these players, they do have enough time to finish. This here's a Serum Visions. Jessup will draw, and now he'll scry 2.
Yeah, Grixis does have some of that closing speed, but it can be tough. Last game was sort of a slog fest and took a while. It looked like Danny was firmly in control, but it took him like 5 turns to win still.
He left Inquisition and Kozilek on top, put a land on the bottom. Cox is going to sacrifice 2 Windswept. He's going to fall down to at least 18, maybe a little lower than that, as there's a basic forest. And a Breeding Pool, so down to 16. Another thing that's a little bit interesting, whenever you're playing against kind of a Grixis control deck or a deck that has access to red mana, you're always thinking about Blood Moon in this format. Don't know if Jessup has access to it or not, but if you can search up basics, it's kind of ideal to take the opportunity to do as much.
Yeah. So interesting to see the Fetch My Breeding Pool untapped, only play a Glistener Elf, say go. So that should be a dead giveaway that there's something over there. Could be a Vines, could be a Pump Spell, could be a Dispel.
Jessup's going to find out soon enough, because here is a copy of Inquisition of Kozilek. He wants to know exactly what's going on. Now, Cox is taking a look at an Apostle's Blessing that he'd like to be able to defend with. Proactive defense is a little bit risky here, though.
Yeah, I mean, if Danny had a Lightning Bolt, he could just use it in response. And since Marlin has two things, he has a Dispel and an Apostle's Blessing, it doesn't really matter all that much.
The hand is Dispel and Apostle's Blessing, as you mentioned, also a Windswept Teeth, and a copy of Become Immense.
Which, despite being cast for 1 mana most of the time, cannot get taken with Inquisition, so that's good. And I think that just works out perfectly for Marlin, where he has the big pump spell that he wants to keep, and then Danny has to choose between which protection spell he wants to take.
He's going to select Apostle's Blessing. Dispel still in the grip. Jessup will pass the turn back. Cox will draw. Picked up another copy of Glistener Elf. And one card that Jessup has in hand, I don't know if you got a great look
I
at
saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Yeah, there's a Static Caster hanging out over there, and he's setting that up pretty nicely. I don't know if Cox is going to play it or not. And it looks like the answer is no.
Okay.
And now there's another copy of his Static Caster. Jessup will pass the turn back after playing a Scalding Tarn. Cox going to sacrifice a Windswept Teeth. I believe this is card number 4 in the graveyard now.
Dryad Arbor? No, just another Breeding Pool. Focused on the infect damage this game.
Doesn't appear as though there is a need for regular damage here.
But it was so close last game, you never know.
Well, you just draw an Inkmoth Nexus now, so now you can go
Okay.
each way. Here comes Glistener Elf. Up to 2, in fact. Jessup not going to make a move. There is Inkmoth Nexus. Oh, no! Another Glistener Elf.
This could end poorly.
I think Danny's going to have an end-of-turn effect.
Yeah, especially with the other Staticaster looming. I mean, I like what Danny's doing here, where he's just not initiating in combat, because that can basically only end poorly for you. I mean, there is the slight chance where it's like, okay, I have nothing, all my things die, whatever. But if Staticaster gets trumped by the Become Immense that, you know, he knows is there, that's so bad for him. He can also just, like, play it and block, potentially.
Yeah. Here is Staticaster. The best way to put it with this card is when this card's good, it's great. No, if that resolves now, they're both gone. 2 for the price of 1.
For the price of 0, you still have the 0-3 Bringer.
Lightning Bolt the draw here for Jessup. Go ahead.
No, I think this is the point of the game where Danny just has to make sure to not mess anything up.
Yeah, I was going to say what I was going to say is now it's time to close it out. Get some sort of big knucklehead on the battlefield, and it looks like it might be Tassiger, and that's how you finish this game up. You know what your opponent's working with. You know there's a Become Immense and a Dispel in hand, so you know this is clear for takeoff, and you conveniently have multiple answers to Inkmoth Nexus on the battlefield and in hand. So there's not a real concern here. A second Inkmoth Nexus, not something to be too concerned with. Jessup will draw.
Well, see, that's a spot that I would probably just fire up the Inkmoth and attack.
Okay.
Well, I guess, no, Danny can just take it and then shoot it in a turn, but, like, it might be one of those spots where, okay, this game is slipping out of control, like, maybe I need him to, like, try and ping it right now.
Well, I think that you need to take some sort of risks here, because playing a game just playing this game straight up is not going to get you anywhere.
No.
You know, that's the big issue. Your opponent's got you covered in a lot of ways, and if you're Marlin Cox, you need Danny to make some sort of an egregious error. So you probably have to make a play that'll make him overthink and lead himself into an error. Don't know if he's going to walk into said error, but I think you have to try. Because if we play the game like this, there's no way he's going to win. Jessup looks like he's going to play Jace maybe.
Yeah, with your opponent at 7, I don't think you necessarily need to. It might just be better to hold open another Staticaster, but he does get to hold open Lightning Bolt still, so it's kind of the same thing.
I believe Spellskite was the draw.
Okay, it's still short.
Yeah, Become Immense is the last card in hand.
Yeah, which Danny knows, so Danny's operating with full information here.
I actually think Cox is a mana short of winning this turn.
Yeah, he is. So Danny could respond to the Spellskite with a Lightning Bolt, take Marlin to 4, and then you have to chump block the Tasigur.
There's a Staticaster activation, and now Lightning Bolt's going to go after the Spellskite. It'll hit the bin. Jessup will draw.
Yeah, now Tasigur attack is lethal because he can, well, maybe not. Maybe he can't transform Jace, but...
Yeah, unsure how many cards in the graveyard at this point because he had to delve away his entire graveyard to play Tasigur.
I think it's just the 2, but it's still one of those things that, you know, maybe Marlin would have to block, but...
He'll discard Jace. And now he's got the Wall of Mana available. Dispel was the draw off of Jace. He's got another Staticaster, an active Staticaster, and even a copy of Go for the Throat, which isn't particularly good right now because the creatures are artifacts. But here's a Gataxian Probe to show you basically an unbeatable grip.
Can you always tell how someone is doing in the game by how they reveal their hand at Gataxian Probe?
Yes.
Always?
Yes.
Okay.
Take a look. By all means. See, you can definitely tell because Danny's just like, my hand's face up.
Yeah.
I have to turn it down. Make it easy for you. Here's another Spellskite.
Okay, can't go for the throat that either.
Yeah, it's like, it's the Isokron Scepter theory. You've heard this theory before?
Maybe.
So when
Refresh me.
when you play a Scepter, and you know it's good and your opponent can't beat it, you announce all parts of the Scepter. Because normally you would just like you wouldn't even say Isokron Scepter, right? You'll just like, I'll play this. Can I imprint or whatever? And then they're like, yeah, sure. But like when you know your opponent's cold to Scepter plus Chant, you're like, I would like to cast Isokron Scepter.
Trigger on the stack.
I will put the imprint trigger on the stack. Does that resolve? I will imprint Orum's Chant. And you would never say the full names of these cards ever. It's like when you're beating your opponent and you cast a legend, like I will cast Moloku the Clouded Mirror. It's your turn.
Yeah, see, I don't do any of this stuff.
Yeah. Though these things happen. These things happen. I will activate Moloku the Clouded Mirror. Does that resolve? All right, I'll put a 1/1 into play. That's when you know you have complete domination. Kind of like Jessup does in this game right now.
Yeah, with 2 Staticasters.
Dispel. Is it Staticaster?
Is it Staticaster? A copy of Dispel.
Just say things very long-winded for no reason at all. Danny Jessup will win this match here over Marlin Cox. 2-1. Chris's Control going to take down Infect. You see the power of his Staticaster here in this matchup. When Staticaster is good, it's fantastic. Obviously very good against Lingering Souls and very good against Infect. Infect just has a natural weakness to things that can consistently deal 1 damage or like a Knight of Souls Betrayal type effect.
Yes. You know, everything has 1 toughness.
Yeah. That's kind of the weakness of the deck. I think that's why people gravitate towards Knight of Souls Betrayal, even though it's expensive. If you get in and play against them, it's very hard to lose. Staticaster's very good against them. Lava Master's really good against them. Just consistent effects like that.
Yep. Yeah, after I played in Oklahoma City with the deck, I was just like, man, I want more Staticasters. I played against a lot of Lingering Souls and stuff like that.
Yeah. And, you know, that I don't know how